Hello and welcome back to the Pro Wrestling Wrestlepedia. Today we're going to talk about the February 6th edition of Monday Night Raw and the February 7th edition of Smackdown Live. And I think they were both decent shows. Could have been a lot better. SmackDown was a pretty good go-home show for the Elimination Chamber, but it could have been a lot better. And there was just certain points of the night that were just, I don't know, just stupid. And I'll get to that in a couple minutes. But first, I'm going to start off with Raw. First thing that happened was Samoa Joe's contract signing for Raw. His Raw contract. And it was Stephanie and Mick Foley in the middle of the ring talking about, whatever. And Mick disagrees with the fact that they want to sign Samoa Joe after his attack on Seth Rollins the week before. And it's cool to see Mick Foley finally growing some balls against Stephanie, making his own decisions, because Joe comes out, starts running down everybody, starts talking about he's going to run through the entire roster, and this part I liked. Mick Foley, well actually no, after he says that, Roman Reigns marches down to the ring, and at first I'm like, oh god, but then Roman Reigns starts talking. And Roman Reigns said the best promo that he's said in a long time. So he's talking about, he's the baddest man to step foot in WWE. And he's going to cave Joe's jaw in and stuff. And it was just a really good promo, actually, from Reigns finally. And him and Joe got a little heated. And then Mick Foley said that he's going to take it upon himself and make a match between Joe and Roman Reigns in the main event, which I was kind of excited for, but I was still a little worried maybe that, Reigns would have picked up the victory against Joe, kind of just making Joe lose his first night on the main roster. But we'll get to that in a minute. But then there was a match between Bayley and Nia Jax. And again, this is one of those things where you can tell how thin the roster actually is when stuff like this happens. But Nia Jax beats Bayley because of Charlotte. Charlotte comes out and distracts everyone, and Nia Jax recovers for a minute and gives a Samoan drop to Bayley and wins against Bayley. I mean, it was the same thing that's been happening between them three. I don't know. It's just getting old for me. But then Braun Strowman, we're back to a month ago with Braun Strowman, where he was facing jobbers because he versed 4 other people and completely dismantled them. And he just completely destroyed these four jobbers. And then he grabs a microphone and says, "Mick Foley, I said I wanted better competition, and this is what you give me. You call this competition?" And it's this is the same thing he did, a month ago. And they're just going right back to it like it never happened. So, he goes, "I'm coming back to find you." Or, "I'm coming back to find you." So he goes back to the back looking for Mick Foley. And he's I want competition. And Mick Foley's like, "Oh, well, if you want competition, you're going to face Roman Reigns at Fastlane." Why does everything involve Roman Reigns? Literally everything has Reigns in it. He's all over the entire show. It's old. It's annoying. But, I don't know. That might be cool to see Strowman versus Roman Reigns, because they're both, too big. Well, technically they want Roman to be a monster, but Braun actually is a monster, so it's going to be cool to see, the actual monster versus the monster that WWE wants. But, yeah, so that'll be cool, I think. I hope it's a good match. And then, oh my god, Akira Tozawa has his in-ring Raw debut against Drew Gulak, and that was a sweet match. For once, the crowd was actually behind something the Cruiserweights were doing. They seemed to really like Akira Tozawa, because that little shout thing he does, it's weird. He got the entire place doing it. And to me, that makes it seem like people were pretty much paying attention to him, because he did some stiff-ass kicks, and that suplex was ridiculous. That dude's amazing. He's going to be something serious. But that was cool, and I hope they have big plans for Tozawa. Like, I feel like if they ever have to disband the cruiserweights because of the fact that they're not doing anything, like everything's just boring, I feel like if they ever have to disband it, there's going to be a handful of people that make it onto the roster without being a cruiserweight. Like, Noam Dar is going to be on the roster probably, Cedric Alexander, Jack Gallagher, and I could see Akira Tozawa being like the top guy that ends up being like a U.S. champ or something. Like, he's going to be something serious outside of the cruiserweight division, and that'd be pretty exciting. But then Chris Jericho and Kevin Owens are in the ring talking about God knows what. No, they're talking about, what, basically saying how awesome they are again. And Chris Jericho is talking about somebody that keeps calling themselves the GOAT. And he said, "You know what happens when you call yourself the GOAT and you're not me? Tom Brady, you just made the list." So it was funny to see him, like, he put Tom Brady on the list after the Super Bowl the night before. That was pretty funny. But, so, Goldberg comes out. And he's talking to Chris Jericho and Kevin Owens. But first, he mentions from the week before when Brock Lesnar challenged him to one final match at WrestleMania. Goldberg says, "Brock Lesnar, I accept your challenge." And then Jericho and Owens started getting a little cocky with Goldberg. And Jericho goes, "You know what happens, Goldberg," when, I forget what he said, but Goldberg grabbed Jericho's list and wrote himself on the list. He goes, "I just made the list." And it was pretty funny. But Goldberg challenged Kevin Owens to a match for the Universal title at Fastlane, which Jericho accepted on Owens' behalf. And Owens was kind of pissed about it at first, but he kind of got over it later in the night and said he's going to beat Goldberg. But basically, this is going to lead to Goldberg getting the Universal title. It's a guarantee. And I think that is like one of the dumbest things that could possibly happen, is giving part-timers titles again. Like, because what's going to happen is Goldberg's going to get the title at Fastlane, and then Brock Lesnar is going to get it at WrestleMania, and it's like pointless. Well, why would you give people that are only there, like, hardly at all, a title? Like, because it's not like Lesnar's going to be there every day with the belt and, taking on all comers. And same with Goldberg. Goldberg can't even wrestle a full match. He only does squash matches. I mean, granted, he's only been in like one or two, but he was hardly in either of them. Like, he just comes for a couple minutes, kicks some ass, and leaves. And that's boring to me. He's just there because he's Goldberg. I mean, yeah, I love Goldberg, but like, it's like Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan would show up every once in a while just to hype everybody up. And that's what Goldberg should be doing. He should be like, no, don't give many matches. Just have him there to come hype everybody up. And then, like, somebody will come out and try to talk crap to him, and he just spears him out of nowhere and does a jackhammer or whatever, and he just beats people up. That'd be cool. Like, people just smart off to him, and then he beats them up. Don't give him matches. Don't give him titles, because he's not going to do anything with it. Anyways, there was another match between Gallows and Anderson versus Sheamus and Cesaro, with Enzo and Cass at ringside, just sitting in chairs outside the ring, not at the announce table, because the announce table is by the ramp. But this is like the 50th time in the past 3 weeks that we've seen these four competitors go at it, and it was another screwy finish. Basically every match this night had a screwy finish, and it was really dumb. But, yeah, screwy finish. Luke Gallows ends up, like, kicking, I think it was Enzo Amore in the face, and, like, they all started fighting, and then there was, they got disqualified because of that, and then they retained, and Cesaro and Sheamus were mad. This is just not proper booking, in my opinion. I think they could do so much more with the club, and it's like they're packaging the club like they're just cheaters and they cheat to win, and it's like, that's not who they are. If you've seen them in Japan, they're just like two genuine badasses that just whooped everybody's ass and did what they wanted, and now they're honestly being packaged like almost like Kevin Owens, but without the comedy. Because Kevin Owens just doesn't win by himself; he just cheats, and I feel like that's what the club does. But I don't know. There's so much more they could do with the club. But then the New Day are out talking about ice cream, and oh, I hate the New Day. I can't help it. I just hate them. And then they had their match against the Shining Stars. Yeah, that was something. It's like the New Day are supposed to be like the top tag team on Raw, and they're facing the Shining Stars, and the Shining Stars are just complete garbage in my opinion. I don't know why they're even there. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about that match because like nothing mattered there. It was just a dumb little segment. But then, since Sami Zayn defeated Chris Jericho last week, he earned himself a United States title shot, which obviously meant he wasn't going to win because he won last week, and why would they let somebody good win 2 weeks in a row? But another screwy finish here. There was a pretty decent match between Jericho and Owens, or Jericho and Zayn, and Chris Jericho distracted the ref while Sami Zayn like had his head leaning outside the ropes, and Jericho come over, super kicked Sami Zayn in the face, and that was it. And Jericho pinned him, and it was like, well, I mean, he hit the codebreaker first, and then he pinned him, and it was over, and it was just, I don't know. Sami Zayn deserves more too. But then there was a segment between the cruiserweights. It was there's gonna be a fatal 5-way. There was gonna be a fatal 5-way the next night on 205 Live. So then they had like a 6-man tag match between Jack Gallagher teaming with Cedric Alexander and T.J. Perkins versus Tony Nese, Noam Dar, and Neville. And this was a pretty cool segment. Like the whole segment was, the best the cruiserweights have been in a little bit, but like the whole promo at first was nice, and then the match itself was pretty fun until like Neville started being a monster heel, and then he ended up, he went, I forget who went for a tag, but Neville jumped off the ropes and just left, and then he got booed like crazy. It was pretty cool to see him be a genuine heel again. I love Neville. He's so good. But it was a good segment. And then the main event, Samoa Joe versus Roman Reigns. I thought this was a pretty good segment. I thought Joe and Reigns put on a pretty good match. Like it was just decent. And then Braun Strowman comes out, distracts Roman Reigns, and Samoa Joe does this new finisher on Reigns. Like I don't know if he's gonna do the muscle buster anymore. I wish he would, because that's my favorite finisher, one of them. But he does like a rock bottom type thing on Roman Reigns, and he pins him, and he gets the win against Reigns, which was pretty sweet because I was afraid that Reigns was gonna win. But again, another screwy finish because Strowman comes out and they both decimate Roman Reigns, and it was pretty cool to see Joe just be a genuine badass like he is, and that looks like they're gonna use Joe correctly, which I'm pretty excited about, and I hope Joe goes a long way on the main roster. I feel like he's a future champion, guaranteed. But yeah, so that was Raw. I mean, it was an okay show. There was fun segments like Roman and Joe, Goldberg and Jericho. There was cool segments, but it wasn't like could have been a lot better. Now SmackDown, on the other hand, I think SmackDown was the better of the two shows for the week. SmackDown, it was a good show, but there was a couple segments that almost ruined it for me. So I love the way SmackDown started off. It started off with Daniel Bryan in his hometown talking about, a year ago he had to retire and all that stuff, and then the Miz comes out. And the Miz goes, boo hoo, and he starts basically calling Daniel Bryan a whiner, and he's like, you can't wrestle, and then Daniel Bryan goes, well, you never use that as an excuse not to get in the ring, and the whole crowd's like, oh, and it was really funny the way Daniel Bryan just dissed the Miz like that, and then Baron Corbin comes out and basically says the Miz never shuts his mouth, and then Dean Ambrose and AJ Styles join. and then they all start getting more intense as it goes, and then they all start arguing, which leads to a fatal 4-way match before the Chamber, because Cena and Bray Wyatt were busy doing something else. But it was a really, really good fatal 4-way match. I thought that was a really good match. A lot of fun spots, a lot of intensity. It was very fast paced. So get this, the winner was Baron Corbin. But not only was Baron Corbin the winner, but he pins AJ Styles clean. And there was 2 other guys, other than AJ Styles, that Baron Corbin could have pinned, but they chose for him to pin AJ Styles. Why? Because it's all leading to a monster push to Baron Corbin, which I think, as much as he's improved over the past year, it's very well deserved. I think Baron Corbin could go a long way. And I thought that was cool that usually I don't like people pinning AJ Styles, because I think that's reserved for, special occasions. Like Cena at the Rumble, okay, that was fine because he had to eat 3 attitude adjustments. But this time, Baron Corbin gave him 1 end of days and pins AJ and looks like a freaking badass at the end of it, which was cool. But oh my god, more Nikki Bella and Natalya. I'm getting sick of these 2 arguing about each other, but it's like the more they say things about another, it's like it's true. Like all the stuff about like Nikki not being a good wrestler, like she's not that good of a wrestler, she's just like good looking, and that's the only reason she's there, in my opinion. Like I think she says all the stuff about Natalya, but Natalya's actually the good wrestler. And she said that the only thing about Natalya is that she's a good wrestler, and that's true. Because, I don't think Natalya has very good mic skills. I honestly don't like neither of them. I just think Natalya has an annoying personality, and Nikki Bella just shouldn't be there, in my opinion. But yeah, they're going to battle once again at the Elimination Chamber, and I can't wait. So then Apollo Crews versus Dolph Ziggler, trying to avenge. Apollo Crews is trying to avenge his good buddy Kalisto. Apollo Crews wins fairly quickly, and I don't know. I don't know how I feel about Apollo Crews yet. I think he has a ton of potential. He's just like, he has no character. His character is just like, hey, I'm happy to be here. And I don't like baby faces that are just happy to be there. It's really annoying. Like American Alpha. American Alpha deserves so much more than what they're getting. And it's like, which leads me to the next segment. They're doing the same thing over and over again with these tag teams. It's the Ascension, the Vaudevillains, and the Usos versus American Alpha, Breezango, and Heath Slater and Rhino. 12-man tag team match. Why is it all the time that there's like every segment with the tag teams has like every tag team in it? That is really stupid. So it's leading to a big tag team turmoil match this Sunday at Elimination Chamber, and it starts out with, I think, American Alpha versus another team, and then like whichever team wins, another team comes out and faces them, and it just keeps going until the last team is standing, which I think is obviously going to be American Alpha. But the final team, I think, is going to be the Revival. I think the Revival are showing up on Sunday finally, and it's going to be really cool. Hopefully that leads to a really good feud. Finally, American Alpha gets a good feud to go into, but we'll talk about that another time. And another annoying segment with every tag team on Smackdown Live. And it ended with the one member, I forget which one it was, but it was one member of the Ascension getting the victory and pinning Rhino, which was pretty serious, I think, because I think they're up for a push now. Like Connor and Victor, I think they're going to be up for a push because not only did they get the pin in this big match, but they pinned Rhino. Rhino was the crowd favorite, obviously, because the whole match, the crowd's chanting, "We want Rhino." The WWE knows how big Rhino is, and like they give the one member of the Ascension the pin on Rhino, and I think that's pretty serious. But then there was a contract signing between Alexa Bliss and Mickie James versus Naomi and Becky Lynch. They had 2 contract signings in one, which was almost pointless. This is one of the segments, as long as the tag team segment, that ruined the night for me. Well, and Natalya and Nikki Bella. But I thought this was stupid because why do Mickie James and Becky Lynch need to sign a contract for like a 0 stipulation match? There's no stipulation for this match. No titles on the line. It's just a match because they're feuding. And it's like, since when do those get contract signings? That was just dumb. I understand that they're all kind of feuding with each other, but then just have them together. Like, just have, Becky come out with Naomi and have Mickie come out with Alexa. Like, what's the point of having Mickie and Becky have to sign a contract for a match that has 0 stipulations? But, they all just kind of talk crap to each other. Mickie James, oh, does she look gorgeous. But, there was, she's my favorite, by the way. I've always loved Mickie James. She's been, like, my favorite women's wrestler of all time. But, yeah. So, Mickie cut another really good heel promo, talking slow. Like, she's talking real slow. Like, she's just, like, sickened by, like, Becky and Naomi, which was pretty cool. I think she's really good as a heel, but she's inevitably going to turn face eventually because she can't stay heel for long. Crowd loves her. But that was a cool segment after I got over the fact that it was really dumb. After they talked, Naomi just kicked Alexa Bliss in the head and used her stupid "feel the glow" phrase. It was dumb. But yeah, and then the main event of the evening for the 500,000th time in their career, John Cena versus Randy Orton. And this was actually a pretty good match. I liked it. It was because this had a screwy finish also, but the screwy finish of this match was really good. You see, Cena and Orton put on a decent match, and then somebody, I forget, but they knocked the ref out. Ref was outside the ring. Bray Wyatt comes in and tries to beat up John Cena, and he tries to give Sister Abigail. John Cena knocks Bray Wyatt out, and then John Cena knocks Randy Orton out, and then Bray Wyatt's trying to fight him, and Luke Harper comes out after Bray Wyatt gives the Sister Abigail to John Cena. Here comes Luke Harper, and he gets face to face with Bray Wyatt, looking terrified, and the crowd's chanting yes, and it looks like Luke Harper just loved listened to the crowd, and he's like, okay, I can do this, and he just wasn't terrified anymore, and he turns around and just clotheslines Bray Wyatt's head off, and it was pretty sick, because the facial expressions that Luke Harper makes, you can tell the dude's a pro. He is so good, and he just clotheslines the crap out of Bray Wyatt, and he ends up helping John Cena get the victory, and it was a pretty cool match. That whole thing with, Luke Harper finally having the balls to attack Bray Wyatt was really good. I think Luke Harper, could be a main eventer based on his wrestling skills alone for the size he is. He's like Braun Strowman. Strowman's a big and tall dude, but he wrestles like a guy that's half of his weight. Just Harper obviously isn't as massive as Strowman, but it's hard for a tall guy to be doing little guy moves. But they do it, and you can tell how talented they are. So, yeah, this Sunday is Elimination Chamber. That was my recap of Raw and SmackDown Live for the week. Later this week, I'm going to post a Elimination Chamber predictions video, and yeah, I'm going to give all my thoughts on the Elimination Chamber, what I think might happen, what I want to happen. I will go through both. So, until then, make sure to watch whatever wrestling you can this week, because that's pretty much what I do, and enjoy yourselves.